Hello and welcome back. So today's we will be starting the study of different types of software development lifecycle. We have already um, uh, learned that what is software development lifecycle, and from this video onwards, we will learn about different types of software development lifecycle, different techniques. With the first one, we will learn about the waterfall model, and then V's model, verification and validation model. It's called V's model, and the third one is iteration model, and so on, prototype model, and so on. So the first one is the waterfall model. What is basically waterfall model? Waterfall model is one of the types of the software development life cycle. In this model, it's given the name waterfall because it depicts the waterfall. So the we start from the requirements collection to the feasibility study, and we move on as it is like in a waterfall. It depicts the waterfall. This is the most easy one to implement. So we get the requirement collection first, and then we have the feasibility study, then we design. In the design, we have the high level design and low level design. In high level design, we have the architectural design of the whole application, and the low level design, we have to design the single units of the application. And then we comes to the coding, where the senior developers, junior developers, and the freshers comes in, and they do the coding for it in any particular language. And then we comes to the testing part. Where the testing team comes in and do the testing if there is any bug in the system or not. After the testing part, there's deployment part to the customer, and then maintenance. So waterfall model, it has some advantages and disadvantages. So we will learn about the advantages first. What are the advantages of the software waterfall model? It is very easy to implement, so it's not like, it's not very complex. It's the most basic model of software development life cycle. You do the one step first, and then you move on to the second. After the completion of one step, you move on to the second. So there is no cross function, cross procedures going on. So after one completion of one process, you only then move to the second one. So there is no cross function, like there is no like second process here, and we have to do this simultaneous. So there is no such kind of a process. So that's why it's known as the, it's easy, and it's the most basic model. The second one is that the phases are completed one at a time. As I mentioned, that after the completion of requirement collection, only then you can move to the feasibility study, and after the feasibility study, only then you can move to the design, and so on. So one phase is done at a time. It works well for the smaller projects where requirements are well understood. So I will emphasize on this point, and when we will be talking about the disadvantages, why it is only useful for smaller projects, and why it is useful for all those projects where the requirements are well understood. So the reason behind is that as I mentioned, that when requirement phase is done, then you move to the feasibility study, and then you move to the design study. You cannot go back to the requirements. It's not allowed, because once this phase has been done, it's locked. You cannot go back to the requirement collection again. So let's say if the user has given you any if the customer has, or your client has given you any features or the requirement that he needs for his or her application, and let's say he wants to add some, and let's say you have started the process, and you are on the design phase, and let's say the customer wants, okay, he wants to add some more features in it. You cannot do that, because for that, if you want to do that, you have to go back to the requirement collection, and then you have again to do the feasibility study, and again do the design, coding, and so on. So you cannot go back. Once the requirement collection is done, you cannot change it. Let's consider an example. Let's say if there is a web page. This is a web page, and this is, let's say, username, and this is password. Okay, so the first customer, the customer told you that, okay, he wants a web page, a web application, a website, an e-commerce website, whatever you can take, that it should have this feature, a username and the password. And let's say you have, based on those, you have done the feasibility study, you have done the design for it, you have done coding for it, let's suppose. And now the customer wants you to add forgot password in it also. Now, if he wants you to do that, you cannot do that. You cannot just jump into the requirement collection and add this feature into it and start coding again. No, if you want to do that, you have to go back to the requirement again. You have to do again the feasibility study. You again have to do the design. So it's like you will be starting a new project from the really beginning. So this is one of the disadvantage, that is, once requirement collection is done, you cannot change it if you have moved to the next step. So you cannot change it. The second disadvantage is that early testing is not possible. So the testing will be in future. We will see that we can also do the testing in the requirement phase, also in the feasibility study and the design and so on. But in the waterfall model, you cannot start early testing. Early testing is very useful in the software development life cycle, because as early as you find the defects or bugs or problem in your software or application, it is easier. It saves a lot of time save a lot of time, not to have that in the application. And also it saves you a lot of money. Like, let's say if you have a bug in the system in the requirement collection, if you find it here, and so it will be, you can correct it here. But if you go on and go to the deployment or any other stage and you find the bug there, so you have done so many phases of the software development, and you have to move back to the requirement stage and correct it again, and you have to do again the feasibility study and design and coding and so on. So it's very one of the big disadvantages that you cannot do early testing in waterfall model. The third big disadvantage is that if there is a bug at any step, so it will flow until testing step. Let's say if there is a bug in the let's say design phase, okay, and you go to the coding, you go to the testing, and it was, let's say, if that bug has been not discovered in the testing phase, fortunately or unfortunately. So when it goes to the deployment, there is a bug in the system. Now if there is a bug, it will flow until the testing step. So let's say there is a bug in the design phase, so it will flow from the coding and went into the testing. So why, if we had a procedure here where we can test the design phase here, and we can detect the bug here, it would have been more you can say feasible. But if there is a bug, it will flow through the chain in the waterfall model. It will not be discovered until the testing phase. So it's also a big disadvantage that you cannot detect a bug at the particular phase. Rather, you have to wait for the testing phase, and there where you can detect the bug. So not good for large projects. So let's consider these two. The advantages is work for smaller projects where requirements are well understood, and not good for large project where the requirements can change according to the user requirements. So that's why in smaller projects where the requirements are definite, let's say someone wants to have a personal blog or something, he wants to add some, let's say his application wants to have some photos upload option, this is the feature, videos upload option, and let's say comment. These are the three features, let's say, the user wants to have. So this is a small project, and this model will definitely work for this, because our requirements are well understood by us, that there are only 3 requirements. So we can, based on that, we can have the feasibility report and design and so on. So it is good for smaller projects. Let's say we have a software, let's say consider Windows 8, Windows 8. Let's say this is our software that was released when about Windows 8. Okay, so for this project it will not be useful. Why? Because based on the user, after it has been deployed to the users, we need the user wants to have different features in it, and based on that we cannot add more features in the requirement collection, and then do the whole process again. So for large projects, so we have to update it, and then we have to do Windows 8.1, which was released again after some time, and so on. So For small projects it is very useful, but for large projects it's not very useful. So you have to keep this in mind. So this is it for the waterfall model. In the next video we will be learning about the verification and validation model, which is an improvement over the waterfall model, and it will address the issues that is having that waterfall model is have like you cannot change the requirement, you cannot change the there is no early testing in waterfall model, but the verification and validation model will address those issues. So see you in the next video.